It's update day, so I figure let's take a look at what we got. But before we get into the pull 80 changes from today, we had the Trailblazer Reward post yesterday, so let's look at that first. Looks like we're going to be pulling all of the cosmetics. The outfit still has a very Fire Nation-esque feel to it. And continuing with the fiery theme, we have our banner. Pretty simple, not too bad. I don't mind the home teleport animation. The blowpipe change I like the look of. It just feels kind of weird to get it from Trailblazer, but I don't think it's a bad idea to give a more in-game weapon a cosmetic change, rather than just the rune crossbow and the whips and kind of more mid-tier gear. The rejuvenation pool override still looks pretty good. The alchemy animation override looks like it's going to be gaining power within the hands and then clapping together to alch the item. It makes sense for the low alch to be just one generation and then clap, but what is high alch going to look like, because that one takes longer to cast. The Vengeance cosmetic override still looks like probably what Vengeance should have been when it was released. It just matches the spell a lot better for what it actually does. I'm a fan of the death animation being deteriorating. The respawn just kind of popping into a sitting position and standing up is a little awkward in theory, but I'd be interested to see what it looks like in practice. And that's everything for Trailblazer Reloaded. Looks like we're missing the Zuck shield, but I'm assuming that's going to be reworked for an Inferno reward or something like that. Kind of like the Zuck helmet for Grandmaster combat achievements. Now on to the Tombs of a Masket changes and some Dead Man mode tweaks. I always kind of like just looking at the changelog since it makes everything short and sweet. So in Dead Man we have the Emblem Trader back in Edgeville. I guess his shop prices were different in the Dead Man worlds, but they're back to normal now. The Scythe will correctly add charges. I'm assuming the partially charged add-on means if you wanted to add like 200 charges and it already had 50, it just wiped out the 50 and gave you 200. Don't know since I haven't used it. No longer receiving tier 1 sigils whenever they shouldn't be, and the PJ timer has been increased slightly. Tombs of a Masket changes have finally come. In the Path of Baba, minimum and maximum counts have been increased so the waves will spawn faster for the monkeys. That is very handy. Shamans no longer spawning thralls if they're poisoned or venomed. That should actually help make the room a little more tolerable than it was before. Same thing with volatile baboons now exploding the other monkeys in the room. This path is the part of Tombs of a Masket I find the weakest, so hopefully these changes should improve it. Now you can deposit items next to the helpful spirit so you can get rid of items that are unwanted during the raid. You can now deposit and retrieve a pickaxe from the raid using the cavity in the wall in the lobby rather than going to the Path of Het. Akka will now only move after a number of successful hits rather than the amount of hits he takes. Thank you. Thralls also no longer contribute to that teleport count, so that'll make that a little nicer as well. It should make his enrage phase feel a bit more consistent. Invocation descriptions should now improve clarity as to what they actually do. And the other improvements, the Pharaoh Scepter drop rate now finally makes sense in Pyramid Plunder, alongside also always rolling for it at the end even if failing chests or sarcophagi. Corruption's finally been looked at from the RC spellbook, so now they both have 50% accuracy rather than I believe 33 and 66. But greater corruption is going to drain twice as many prayer points as opposed to lesser corruption. Mark of Darkness now is a buff on the caster rather than a target spell. That just makes sense. Lava dragons can now drop in soul dragon heads. Again, that also just makes sense. The Web Weaver now consumes 1 charge instead of 4 whenever using the special attack. You can now take multiple god capes at the same time. General PvP worlds now can use a multi-cannon wherever you can't use a looting bag. There are now loot key broadcasts for the clan chat. Wilderness Achievement Diary Rune Awards have been increased throughout all of the tiers. I believe they're talking about the ones you can get from the Mage Arena Bank. Random events have been disabled inside of the Wilderness boss layers. I don't know why this is down here other than up where they talked about the Mark of Darkness earlier, but since it has been changed to being a buff on the caster, you'll now get a notification before it expires. A message will now appear in the chat box to indicate players have been bound. Players will also receive a message when they unfreeze. So since they use the word bound and unfreeze, does this mean like snares and tangles as well as the ice spells are gonna let you know if you've been frozen as well as when you can run? Sounds good to me. It's just more information for the player. And Dragon Scale Dust has been removed from the Nightmare Zone reward shop, and I believe that's because of the scaly blue dragon hide they added a few updates ago. For other changes they brought in, looks like they fixed an issue within Bounty Hunter for the 15% accuracy bonus from the Bounty Hunter's Ancient Kit during special attacks. There's now a notification for the player-owned house dungeon treasure chest to say who got it and how much was received. The love crossbow cannot be fired in PvP areas. Thameron's scepter and the accursed scepter will show 0 splashes if the wielder's magic has been drained. That's convenient for if you're not noticing it. Free-to-play players are now told that they need membership to enter the mage training arena, and I guess the Cosmetic Slayer helms were not showing that they would be lost on death in the death interface, so they've fixed that as well. And to finish off, we have the weekly PvP changes. That's a pretty good blog, but coming in to look at it today, we also had a surprise drop. The Scar Essence Mine. Looks like this is the pitch to update Shopscape for Iron Men rather than adding rune packs or unlimited runes. It makes sense why they're going this direction. We can do better than blood rune packs. We have an entire skill dedicated to crafting runes. Why not use it? It looks like we're calling it Ventriculus, the Abyssal Extractor. The lore of it is going to be the Scar sucks in leftover things from people doing Guardians of the Rift, basically. They get maneuvered through the Abyss, which changes them, and the Abyss is going to grow around them, so that's where we'll need to mine them out. So it looks like due to this little flowchart, our gameplay loop is going to be mining the essence, taking it to the extractor, and then you can either turn the essence into pure essence, or you can make an extract to choose what rune type of extract you would want, pay the GP for it, and gain the extract. Looks like it would be about 10,000 pure essence an hour, and obtaining the pure essence will not cost anything this way, or just turn the tainted essence into extracts, which can then be turned into catalysts. So it seems like it's going to kind of be the smithing catalyst from Giant's Foundry, but for rune crafting. The NPC that's been twisted by the Abyss, concept of the essence as well as the different extracts that you could pull from it, the amalgamation sizes, as well as the actual ventriculus itself. The prices for the extracts were balanced around shop prices, so it's pretty much like an update to Shopscape, but instead of world hopping and buying, you're now using your GP to actually play the game to get your essence, rather than just doing a Grand Exchange light version of getting runes. I think this sounds like a good idea. Actually have people do runecraft and play the game as opposed to just buying from the shop. If you have the cash to afford it, you can do about 25,000 extracts per hour, and they did the math to have that put somewhere in the region, using blood runes as an example, of 200 to 250,000 runes an hour. And that is without bonuses such as Raiments of the Eye or Blood Essence. 25,000 extracts would cost about 600 mil, and that would result in losing half of the GP spent to make the runes. So this is not for profit, this is purely for quantity. This is how we intend to keep vast quantities of runes from entering the main economy. That makes sense. They want it to be useful for the people that are complaining about buying from shops, but they don't want it for mains to overload the game with runes. They're thinking of balance, and I appreciate this. We have the example of 27 pure essence and 27 extracts. Without any bonuses, that would give you 1,600 blood runes, for about 650k that you would have spent on the extracts. So overall it's going to be more expensive from buying from shops too, but this looks like it'll be geared toward late game Iron Men to be able to fuel their weapons. But that makes sense because it is located within the Scar, so you do at least need partial completion of Desert Treasure 2. I'm gonna guess that's only require you to get into the Scar for the Leviathan section of the quest, as opposed to actually killing the Leviathan. And that is the conclusion of the proposal for Ventriculus. I like the idea. If you're at the point that you're complaining about buying blood runes for Shopscape, you probably have more than enough GP to put into this. And it doesn't just make Iron Men have a Grand Exchange light way of getting runes, it actually makes them play the game. We'll leave off back on the concept art as well as the closing thought of, even if it's not entirely useful for everybody, I'm really glad that they are expanding on the areas that were introduced in Desert Treasure 2. I want reasons to go back to those places. They were very well designed, looked amazing, and I hope that they continue to build on them. Other than that, have a good rest of the day, you guys.